Ancient records warned of the Terran storm. Part 1. The vault had been sealed for 3 million years. Stood before it, her skin shifting through colors that reflected her excitement. Blue for curiosity, gold for anticipation. The ancient door bore markings she had never seen before, not in all her centuries as an archivist. "Are you certain about this?" her assistant Mora asked. The young skin flickered with nervous purple patterns. "The precursors sealed this vault for a reason," replied. "We need to know why." The station of remembrance floated in the void between stars, built by the precursors long before any current civilization had learned to leave there. It held countless records, warnings, and knowledge from species that had risen and fallen over billions of years. Most archivists spent their entire lives studying just one chamber, had discovered this vault by accident, hidden behind a collapsed wall in a forgotten corridor. The door opened with a sound like grinding stones. Inside, crystalline data cores floated in suspension fields, each one pulsing with faint light. Reached for the nearest core, and the moment her fingers touched it, information flooded her mind. She saw images of war, ships burning in the void, worlds consumed by fire, and through it all, a species she didn't recognize. They stood on two legs with hair on their heads and skin in various shades. Their eyes held something that made skin flash red with instinctive fear. Determination. The vision faded, steadied herself against the wall, breathing hard. "What did you see?" Mora asked. "A warning," whispered. "We need to translate these records, all of them." The work took 6 weeks, barely slept, barely ate. The precursor language was difficult, full of concepts that didn't exist in modern tongues, but slowly the story emerged. The precursors called them Terrans, humans. They had appeared in this region of space long ago, fleeing something terrible. At first the precursors thought them primitive. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were crude. They were laughably short. Then the precursors made the mistake of threatening them. The records spoke of battles that logic, humans who sacrificed themselves to save others, tactics that broke every rule of warfare, ships that rammed into enemies twice their size, soldiers who fought with broken bones and failing organs, and most terrifying of all, their ability to adapt. Every time the precursors found a way to defeat them, the humans changed. They learned. They evolved. Not through genetics, but through pure stubborn will. The war lasted 300 years. The precursors, the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known, could not break the humans. Eventually, they chose peace. They helped the humans find a new home, a yellow star with a perfect world. In exchange, the humans promised to leave the precursors alone. Both sides kept their word. The final record chilled to her core. It was marked with the highest level of warning glyphs. "Should the Terrans ever return to this space," it read, "do not provoke them, do not threaten them, do not assume their weakness. They are not a species, they are a storm, and storms cannot be reasoned with, only endured." Then came the final line. "We were fortunate they chose mercy." Brought her findings to the Galactic Council. The chamber was vast, with representatives from 20 species arranged in a circle. They sat with military precision, their scaled bodies armored even in peacetime. They hovered in their crystal matrices, processing information at speeds organic minds couldn't match. They floated in their environmental tanks, their tentacles moving in graceful patterns. At the center stood Chancellor OK, who had led the council for 2 centuries. "We have examined your evidence, archivist," OK said. His voice carried the weight of authority. "The council has reached a decision." Skin flickered hopefully. "The Terrans are extinct," OK continued. "This is confirmed fact. Their star went supernova 2 million years ago. We have surveyed the region. There is nothing left but debris." "But the precursor records," began. "Our mythology," interrupted Seven. Its voice was cool and logical. "The precursors were advanced, but they were not infallible. These records were likely propaganda, meant to justify a peace treaty after a costly war. Or they exaggerated a minor threat, added Ambassador, speaking through her translation device. Ancient records often grow in the telling. Skin flashed red, anger. The precursors chose to hide from the humans rather than fight them, they who had conquered half the galaxy. Does that sound like exaggeration? It sounds like cowardice, OK said flatly. Perhaps the precursors were not as mighty as we believed. Regardless, the matter is settled. The Terrans are dead. They have been dead for millions of years. Your discovery will be filed as a historical curiosity, nothing more. The council moved on to other matters, trade disputes, border negotiations, things that seemed important until had read those records. She left the chamber feeling hollow. 3 days later, the message arrived. Research Station was located in the outer reach, monitoring the empty space between spiral arms. It was boring duty, the kind given to scientists who had disappointed their superiors. They studied cosmic radiation, cataloged asteroids, and counted the days until their rotation ended. Chief researcher, and was reviewing data when the alarm started screaming. Spatial anomaly detected, his assistant reported. Massive energy signature, it's like nothing in our database. Show me, and ordered. The lit up. In the void of space, reality was tearing open, not like a wormhole or a jump point. This was something else. Space itself was folding, creating a pocket where the laws of physics bent in impossible ways. And something was coming through. Ships emerged one by one. They were strange, built in ways that made no sense to Anne's trained eye, asymmetrical, inefficient. Some were barely holding together, covered in patches and repairs. They used primitive fusion drives that any decent engineer would have replaced centuries ago. But there were hundreds of them, then thousands. Are they broadcasting? Anne asked. Yes, audio and visual, ancient formats, I'm translating now. A face appeared on the screen. 2 eyes, no scales or chromatophores, hair growing from the top of its head. It looked tired, so very tired. This is the Terran Arc Fleet, the being said. Its voice was rough, worn down by years of use. We are the descendants of humanity, returned from exile. We come in peace. We seek only to reclaim what was once ours. Anne's hands shook as he accessed the historical database. Terrans, humans, the extinct species from old myths. Not extinct. Send a response, and ordered. Welcome them, tell them we mean no harm, establish diplomatic. The second alarm cut him off. This one was different, louder, more urgent. Contact, his assistant shouted. Fleet incoming, battle formation, they're powering weapons. No, and breathed. They don't understand, they don't know what the humans are. He tried to send a warning, tried to tell the commander about the precursor records, but military channels were locked. They saw only primitive ships manned by an unknown species. They saw weakness to be exploited. They saw easy prey. The fleet commander opened a channel to the humans. Unidentified vessels, you are in Galactic Council space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with force. And watched in horror as the human fleet responded. They didn't power down. They didn't flee. Instead, every ship in the human fleet turned to face the thousands of primitive vessels against 300 state-of-the-art warships. It should have been a massacre. It was, just not the kind they expected. The humans fought like nothing Anne had ever seen. They didn't follow standard tactics. They didn't worry about casualties. Ships accelerated to ramming speed, targeting vessels with suicidal precision. Others released clouds of debris that shredded shields and armor. Some carried weapons that shouldn't work, jury-rigged combinations of technology from different eras. And when they adapted, the humans changed. Every tactic was replaced within minutes. Every strategy evolved in real time. They fought like a species that had learned warfare in a place where defeat meant extinction. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, a third of the fleet was destroyed or disabled. The rest retreated in disorder, their proud formation shattered. The human fleet barely paused. They collected their dead, salvaged what they could, and continued forward into Council space, and managed to send one final message before his station went dark, its power reserves depleted by the stress of observing the battle. "Alert the Council," he transmitted. "Tell them the precursor records were right. Tell them the Terrans have returned. And tell them," he paused, remembering the words from those ancient warnings, "tell them the storm is here." On Remembrance Station received the message. Her skin went pure white, the expression of absolute shock. She had been right. They had all been fools. The ancient records had warned them. The precursors, in all their wisdom, had left a message for future generations, and the Galactic Council, in all their arrogance, had ignored it. Now the Terrans were here, and the galaxy would learn what the precursors had learned 3 million years ago: that some storms could not be stopped, only endured. Began preparing her files. The Council would listen now. They had no choice. The storm was breaking. Part 2. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, their voices creating a cacophony that made translation difficult. Stood at the center of it all, her skin cycling through colors so rapidly it hurt to watch. "Order," Chancellor OK bellowed. His scaled fist slammed against the podium. "We will have order." The chamber gradually quieted. OK turned his gaze to the military liaison, Commander Orr, who stood with his head held high despite the humiliation of retreat. "Report," OK ordered. "We engaged a fleet of primitive vessels," Orr said. His voice was steady but could see the tension in his posture. "They refused to surrender. We were forced to use lethal force." "You lost a third of your fleet to primitives," Seven stated. No accusation, just cold fact. Orr's jaw tightened. "They fought unlike anything in our tactical databases. No formation, no strategy. They simply attacked with complete disregard for their own survival. Our weapons systems couldn't calculate their movements because there was no logic to them." "Chaos," Ambassador said softly. "They weaponized chaos." Stepped forward. "This is what the precursor records warned about. The Terrans don't fight like us. They fight to win, whatever the cost. The precursors learned this lesson. We should have listened." "What do you propose?" OK asked. His tone suggested he already knew and didn't like the answer. "Diplomacy," said, "immediately, before more blood is spilled." "They destroyed Council vessels," or protested. "We cannot show weakness." "They defended themselves after you threatened them," shot back, her skin flashing angry red. "The records show they respond to respect, not force. Send me. Let me speak with them." The Council deliberated for hours. In the end they agreed, though suspected it was less about peace and more about buying time to assemble a larger fleet. They gave her a small diplomatic ship and a crew of volunteers. Orr himself insisted on joining, claiming he wanted to understand the enemy. Suspected he simply wanted revenge. The journey to the human fleet took 3 days. They were easy to track. The humans made no attempt to hide, moving steadily toward the inner systems. Spent the time reviewing every scrap of information about ancient humanity, their culture, their history, their wars. They were, she realized, a species that had never known peace. Every century brought new conflicts. They fought themselves as often as they fought others. And yet, when faced with an external threat, they united with terrifying efficiency. "Approaching the Terran fleet," the pilot announced. Looked at thee and felt her breath catch. The fleet was massive beyond imagining. At its center was a structure that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. It was a city in space, a world unto itself, irregular and patched like it had been built and rebuilt countless times. The Ark, she whispered. They turned their evacuation ship into a mobile civilization. A communication request came through, accepted it. The face that appeared was female, with skin darker than the void and eyes that held the weight of generations. Her hair was cut short, practical rather than decorative. She wore a uniform that looked military but bore no rank insignia recognized. "I am Admiral Way of the Terran Ark Fleet," the woman said. Her voice was controlled but could hear the anger beneath. "You're brave, coming here after your people tried to destroy us." "I am Archivist of the Galactic Council. I come to offer apologies and seek peace." Slav was bitter. "Peace. We sent greetings. We extended friendship. Your warriors answered with weapons fire. Many of my people died in that battle, Archivist. Give me one reason why I shouldn't turn your ship into debris." Felt or tense beside her, but she kept her focus on. "Because 3 million years ago, your ancestors and the precursors found peace. Because the records they left speak of mutual respect and understanding. Because I believe we can do the same." Studied her for a long moment. "You know about the precursors?" "I found their records, their warnings. The council dismissed them as mythology until you arrived." Something shifted in expression. Not quite trust, but perhaps the possibility of it. "Come aboard, alone." "I'm going with her," or said immediately. His eyes narrowed. "You're the one who ordered the attack." "I am," or said, meeting her gaze without flinching. "And I will take responsibility for my actions." "Brave or stupid," muttered. "Both of you then, but if you try anything you won't leave this ark alive." The docking procedure was tense, and were escorted through corridors that looked ancient but functional. Everywhere they went, humans stopped to stare. Some looked curious. Others looked hostile. One young man spat on the floor as they passed. They were brought to a chamber that served as both command center and museum. One wall displayed images of Earth, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, a world that no longer existed. Stood before a tactical display showing the current position of both fleets. 2 million years, she said without turning. That's how long we've been running. Our ancestors evacuated Earth when they detected the supernova coming. Not everyone made it. Billions died. Those who escaped did so in whatever ships they could build. She finally turned to face them. They hid in subspace, in a pocket of folded reality where time moved differently. Inside the Ark, only 200 years have passed. Outside, epochs came and went. We watched through quantum probes as the galaxy changed, as species rose and fell, as you built your council on the ruins of civilizations you never knew existed. Skin flickered with sympathy. "I'm sorry for what you've lost." "Are you?" Voice hardened. "Because from where I stand, your people tried to finish what the supernova started." "That was a mistake," Or said. His voice was gruff but honest. "We thought you were raiders, pirates, we didn't know." "You didn't ask," countered. "You saw weakness and attacked, just like every predator we've ever encountered." "We were wrong," said. "Please let us make this right. The Council wants peace." "The Council wants time to build an armada," said flatly. "I've read your military protocols. I know how you think." She walked to a console and brought up a star chart. "But there's something you need to know, something more important than our petty conflict." She expanded the display, showing the galactic edge. Red markers appeared, hundreds of them, moving inward like a slow tide. "What are those?" Or asked. "The reason we came back," said quietly. "The reason we've been preparing for 200 years. They're called the Devourer Swarms. They're what destroyed our original galaxy. They're biological machines engineered by a civilization that lost control of its own creation. They consume everything: worlds, stars, life." Felt cold. "How long until they arrive?" 6 days, said. "They've been following us across intergalactic space. We tried to lose them, tried to hide, but they're relentless. When we detected them entering this galaxy, we knew we had to warn everyone. That's why we came back." And we attacked you, or said, his voice heavy with realization. Yes, looked at them both. So now you have a choice. We can fight each other or we can fight them. But I promise you if the swarms reach your worlds, nothing will survive. Not your people, not your cultures, not even your ruins. His mind raced. 6 days. The council would never mobilize in time. They were used to lengthy preparations, careful strategies. They had forgotten how to fight for survival. What do you need? She asked. Seemed surprised by the directness. Everything, ships, weapons, resources, but most of all, we need you to learn how to fight like you mean it. No honor, no glory, just survival. I can teach them, or said suddenly. Both females turned to stare at him. I fought the Terrans. I saw what they can do. If the swarms are worse, then our traditional tactics will fail. We need to adapt. Why would you help us? Asked. Because I swore an oath to protect the council's citizens, or replied. All of them. If what you say is true, then I've already failed once by attacking potential allies. I won't fail again. Studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, we have 6 days to turn your civilized fleets into something that can survive. It's not enough time, but it's what we have. She held out her hand, a human gesture had read about. Partners. Reached out and took it, feeling the warmth of human skin. Partners. Or placed his scaled hand over both of theirs. Partners. As they stood there, 3 species united by necessity, alarms began blaring throughout the ark. A technician called out, Admiral, the probes are confirming, the swarms are accelerating. New estimate, 4 days. His expression hardened, then we'd better work fast. Felt her skin cycle through colors, finally settling on determined orange. The council wouldn't like what she was about to do. They would argue and debate and form committees. But she had seen the precursor records. She had read the warnings. Sometimes, the only way to survive a storm was to become one yourself. Take us back to our ship, she told. We need to convince the council, and we're going to need every second of those 4 days. The real battle was about to begin. Part 3. The council chamber had never been so full. Every species had sent representatives, even minor colonies that rarely participated in galactic politics. They crowded the space, filling every available spot, their voices creating a wall of sound. Stood at the center with Admiral Way beside her. Or flanked them, his military bearing somehow more imposing now that he had fought beside the humans and lived to tell about it. This is madness, Chancellor OK said. You ask us to trust these aliens who destroyed 1/3 of our fleet. We defended ourselves, said coldly. Your commander attacked first. And I take full responsibility, or interjected. But this isn't about blame. We have 3 days before the devourer swarms arrive. After that, none of our disagreements will matter because we'll all be dead. You've seen the data, added, her skin pulsing with urgent red. The projections don't lie. The swarms consume entire planets in hours. Their numbers are beyond counting. If we don't stand together, we stand no chance. 7 processed the information faster than any organic mind could. The logical conclusion is clear. United, we have a 14% chance of survival. Divided, that drops to 0.3%. 14% is not encouraging, Ambassador said softly. It's better than 0, replied. And those numbers assume you fight the way you've always fought, carefully, honorably, with rules of engagement. She looked around the chamber. The swarms have no honor, no mercy. If you want to survive, you need to learn to fight like humanity. And what does that mean? OK demanded. It means sacrifice, or said quietly. I've studied their tactics. The humans win because they're willing to pay the price. Every time, no hesitation. We're not asking you to become us, said. We're asking you to survive. The precursors understood this. They chose to work with humanity rather than against us. We're offering you the same choice. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to flee to the outer rim, hoping the swarms would consume the core worlds and stop. Others advocated for immediate surrender, believing the swarms might spare those who didn't resist. A few wanted to continue fighting the humans, seeing them as the greater threat. Finally had enough. Her skin blazed pure white, the signal for absolute authority. Enough, her voice cut through the chaos. Every moment we waste arguing is a moment we're not preparing. The precursors left us a warning. I found it, I read it. And I'm telling you now, we have one chance and one chance only. Trust the humans or die. The chamber fell silent. I vote yes, said formally. Alliance with the Terrans. As do I, or added. One by one, other voices joined. Some reluctant, some eager, some simply terrified. In the end, the vote was nearly unanimous. Then we have work to do, said. Commander, or you'll coordinate with your fleets. My people will embed with every ship, every station. We'll teach you everything we know. It won't be pretty and you won't like all of it, but it will keep you alive. The next 3 days were a blur of activity. Human tacticians spread throughout the Council fleets, bringing with them strategies that horrified and inspired in equal measure. On the flagship, a human marine named Jackson taught close-quarters combat to soldiers who had never fought hand-to-hand. You don't fight to look good, he barked at a warrior who tried to execute a traditional honor strike. You fight to live, dirty, fast, and mean. In the networks, human chaos algorithms were integrated into logical combat programs. They initially rejected them as inefficient, until simulations showed a 40% increase in unpredictability. The enemy couldn't counter what it couldn't predict. The peaceful by nature found themselves contributing in unexpected ways. Their scientists worked alongside human engineers, combining technologies that shouldn't work together. Human desperation met innovation, creating weapons that bent the rules of physics. Spent her time coordinating, translating, and occasionally mediating when cultural differences led to conflict. She watched as proud warriors learned humility from battle-scarred humans. She saw ancient rivalries set aside in the face of extinction. She witnessed the birth of something new, something that had never existed before. A truly united galaxy. On the 3rd day, the swarms arrived. They came in a wave of twisted horror, ships that were grown rather than built, weapons that fed on the energy of dying stars. Millions of them, stretching across the void like a plague. The United Fleets met them at the threshold, a massive nebula chosen by human strategists for its dense particle clouds and unstable gravity wells. Every species contributed ships. Every world sent what it could. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. It looked tiny against the swarms. All ships broadcast from the Terran arc. Remember what you've learned, adapt, survive, fight. The battle began. The swarms attacked with mindless efficiency, their formations perfect and unchanging. They had evolved to fight orderly opponents, to counter predictable tactics. They had never fought humans. The Council fleets, guided by their human advisors, threw away the rulebook. Warriors piloted crippled ships directly into swarm clusters, detonating their cores at point-blank range. Vessels broadcast viral algorithms that confused swarm coordination. Science ships released experimental weapons that rewrote the laws of physics in localized areas, creating zones where swarm biology simply stopped working. And the humans fought with the desperate fury of a species that had spent 2 million years running. Their arc, too large and slow to fight effectively, served as command center and hospital and factory all at once. Crews worked around the clock, repairing ships, creating ammunition, treating the wounded. The battle lasted 18 hours. The swarms adapted, their hive intelligence learning from each engagement. But every time they countered a tactic, the United Fleets changed. Human unpredictability spread like a virus through the Council forces. A commander would suddenly order a retreat that turned into an ambush. or would execute an illogical maneuver that caught the swarms off guard, that would unveil yet another impossible weapon. But it wasn't enough. The swarms kept coming, overwhelming through sheer numbers. The fleet was being pushed back, taking unsustainable losses. That's when made her decision. All ships, this is Admiral Way, retreat to minimum safe distance. Her voice was calm, accepting. The Terran arc will remain. Negative, or responded immediately. We don't abandon allies. You're not abandoning us, replied. You're surviving, that's what matters. On Remembrance Station, watched the tactical display with growing horror. She understood what was planning. The Ark began powering up systems that had been dormant for. Deep in its core, ancient mechanisms stirred to life. The precursors had helped humanity build something terrible and beautiful, a weapon of last resort. A quantum disruptor on a planetary scale. Admiral, please, transmitted. There has to be another way. His face appeared on her screen. She looked tired but at peace. We've been running for so long, Archivist. 2 million years of hiding, surviving, hopping for a future. You gave us that, all of you. You trusted us when you had every reason not to. This is our thank you. We need you, said, her skin flashing desperate colors. The galaxy needs humanity. The galaxy has humanity, smiled. You learned from us. You adapted. You became something new. That's our legacy. That's worth dying for. The disruptor activated. Reality screamed. At a quantum level, the arc became a singularity of unraveling energy. It reached out across thousands of kilometers, touching the swarm ships and simply erasing their connection to each other. The hive intelligence, so perfect in its coordination, shattered. The swarms recoiled, their formations breaking apart. Ships drifted without purpose, the collective consciousness that had driven them now fractured beyond repair. But the arc was burning. Its superstructure couldn't handle the forces it was channeling. Sections exploded. Compartments vented to space. Thousands of humans who had volunteered to stay behind to operate the weapon died at their posts. Remained on the command deck until the end. Her final transmission was calm, almost conversational. Take care of them, Archivist, my people. The ones who evacuated, give them worlds, give them peace. And remember that humanity didn't come back to conquer, we came back to save. She paused. We survived the darkness so you wouldn't have to. The transmission ended. The arc imploded, taking 1 million swarm ships with it. The remaining swarms, leaderless and confused, fled into deep space. The battle was over. In the aftermath, the galaxy mourned and celebrated, helped coordinate the settlement of the surviving humans. 20,000 of them, all that remained of a species that had once numbered in billions. Every council world offered to take them in. They chose a planet with a yellow sun, similar to their lost Earth. They named it Second Chance. 50 years later was old by standards. Her skin had settled into permanent gold, the color of contentment. She visited Earth Memorial Station, built around the preserved core of the Terran arc. It had become a place of pilgrimage for every species. A young human girl ran up to her, no more than 10 years old. She had been born on Second Chance, had never known war or running or fear. "Are you the archivist?" the girl asked, "the one who found the records?" "I am," confirmed. "My teacher said the old records called my people a storm. Why?" Knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the child. Around them, other children played, human and together. A generation that knew only friendship. Because, child, when the universe grew dark, your ancestors brought the thunder and lightning that cleared the sky. They were fierce and terrible and beautiful. They were a storm that broke upon those who threatened the innocent. She gestured to the playing children. And after the storm came the rain. Life, growth, hope. The girl considered this seriously. "I want to be like them." "You already are," said softly. "You carry their courage, their determination, their capacity for sacrifice. but you also get to be something they rarely were. What's that? Safe, happy, free, skin glowed warm gold. That's what they fought for, that's what they died for, so you could have what they never did. The girl nodded and ran off to join her friends. Stood slowly, her old joints protesting. She looked up at the memorial, at the names of those who had died on the Ark, thousands of them. Wei's name was carved larger than the others, a recognition of her sacrifice. But beside it, in equal size, were the names of council members who had died in the battle. Warriors, drones, scientists. They had learned from humanity and become something new, something better. A storm thought, watching the children play. The precursors had been right. Humanity was a storm, but storms weren't just destruction. They were also renewal, transformation, the clearing away of the old to make room for the new. And the galaxy, she reflected, had been fortunate. Not because the humans chose mercy, though they had, but because they chose to teach mercy, to show that strength and compassion weren't opposites but partners. The ancient records had warned of the Terran storm, but they hadn't mentioned what came after. Peace, unity, hope. Skin glowed golden as she walked away from the memorial, past playing children who would never know the fear their parents had faced. The storm had passed, leaving behind a garden. And that, she thought, was worth everything.